Hey everyone, my name is Carissa.
And my name is Tyler.
And welcome to the Christ Fellowship Young Adult YouTube channel. We are the young adult ministry of Christ Fellowship Church in South Florida. We're a community of young adults who love Jesus, are seeking after his purposes for us so that we can transform the culture around us.
And we're so glad that you've made it here. And while you're here, go ahead and take a second to hit the subscribe button, get connected to all that we're doing, and you'll never miss a beat. Here you'll find a new message every week curated just for our young adults community that we get from Thursdays, our 7:30 gatherings. You'll be able to watch and listen to our very own podcast, the Young and Adulting Podcast. Look out for all our special original music, content, and more from our young adults team.
Yeah, check out the description below for more info on who we are, what we do, and how you can be a part of it. And share this page with a friend who needs to jump in and be a part of this community. Well, welcome to the CF Young Adults YouTube channel.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, hey friends, if you're here for the first time or maybe you've been coming for a little bit and I haven't had the opportunity to meet you, my name is Tyler. I'm one of the pastors here at Christ Fellowship. I get to hang out here every Thursday. And if you haven't been with us over the last couple weeks, or if you have, we've been in this series called Running with Giants, where we've been exploring some heroes of the faith. And tonight, I really just want to jump right into it, but I want to hinge it off this question that you've probably heard someone ask you or say before, and it's this question. Why do bad things happen to good people? Have you ever asked yourself that question? I think the sentiment of the question is a good question, but I think at the end of the day, if we look at the Bible, it's kind of clear that it's hard to stack hands on the reality that we're actually not good. So the question that's remaining is still like, why do bad things happen? And I think we could spend a lot of time talking about that. Why do bad things happen? And so you came to Young Adults tonight, and we're going to be talking about a topic that I don't think gets a lot of space. We're going to be talking, and I'm going to attempt to talk somewhat faithfully, hopefully, over the next 20-some minutes around the topic of suffering. And I just felt like kind of in my spirit, before I jump in to the text tonight, we're going to be talking from the book of Job, that I just want to say that this by no means is going to be an exhaustive, we've settled it, here's the answers, just deal with it. Because I recognize and realize that all of us are walking through life, and all of us have experienced suffering. You've experienced pain. You will experience pain. It's a part of life. And so I just want to say to hold on, if after the end of this time you're still struggling. We're going to be talking about this subject of suffering, and the giant that we're going to be focusing on in Running with Giants is a man named Job, who happens to be also the name of the book that we'll be studying. A few things that you need to know about the book of Job. It's actually said to be the oldest manuscript in the Bible. The author is anonymous, but it centers around this guy named Job. If you're new to the Bible, I remember when I first started reading it, I approached it and I read it Job, because that's how we spell job, but his name is pronounced Job. And a few things that you need to know about him. He's a really wealthy guy. He has a house on Palm Beach Island. He has the Lamborghini. He has all of the stuff. He has a big family. He's respected in the community. By every sense of the word, Job is someone that we would say, if he was living today, had the life that we probably wanted. And the book of Job actually starts off more like almost like a movie script. It starts off by saying this, that there was once a man named Job. And then it goes on to describe that he was a man that God called blameless and upright. He was a well-established person in the community. He had a lot of money. He had a lot of wealth. And the story, if you read, there's 42 chapters in the book of Job. If you read it in the first chapter, it takes a really quick turn. Because in the first chapter, verse 6, what's happening, what we see in the scripture is that there's this group called, your translation might say the sons of God, or it might say the heavenly court or the heavenly council got together with God. And it sounds like a movie, but this is what we see. That the heavenly council court get together with God in the heavens, and God begins to speak and boast about this guy named Job. Now that's all great, but it just so happens that Satan, whose name means accuser, is also present in this moment. Side note, the devil, Satan, his name is an accuser. And that's his role in your life, is to accuse you, to accuse me on the things that we have done before God. And so Job is now a part of the conversation, and this person Job is the center of the talk, and God's saying, hey, have you noticed Job? There's nobody like him. He's upright. He follows me. And so here Satan comes to the equation and goes, well, of course he's blameless. Of course he honors you. Of course he follows you. Who wouldn't? He's rich. He's got it all. But I bet if you go ahead and take away those things, he'll turn around and curse you. Immediately we see this guy named Job put to the test, and God says, okay, you may take his things, but don't touch his life. So what we read early in the first chapter is this is what happens. They leave, and Job, in a matter of moments, gets 4 messages, and this is what happens. Hey, your livestock has all been stolen. He had tons and tons of livestock. I mean, think all of your money is stolen. Your servants, yeah, they all got murdered. All of your children, there was a natural disaster that happens, and they're all dead. In one moment, he gets all of this news that everything that was in his life was now stripped of him. The text says that he shaves his head and he begins to mourn, but he doesn't curse God. And so round 2, it says again that the heavenly court, the sons of God, got together with God, and God's going, yo, my guy Job, he's faithful. He's a man of integrity. Everything was taken from him, and he still remained true. And now Satan comes back again, accusing, yeah, but you didn't touch his life. At the end of the day, all people care about are their own lives. Let me put him through some pressure. So the Lord says, okay. So he leaves from that place, and the Bible will tell us that Job gets sores on his body, and he goes through so much turmoil and pain to the point at which he wanted to die. And then we see, if you read all 42 chapters, these 3 friends that pop into his life, and they're not necessarily the kind of friends that you want when you're going through it. And if you read the chapters, chapter over chapter over chapter, essentially what Job is it's this lament. It's Job in his mourning and in his desperation going, God, I don't get it. And the friends, they pop onto the scene and they give him a little spiel. And there's 10 speeches that Job gives. And then he gives a response to the friend who basically each at their own time tell him like, Job, yo, you must have messed up severely. Your kids probably deserve to die. They were probably sinners. They probably deserved everything. Matter of fact, you deserve probably right now in this moment all the suffering and pain you're going through. The kind of friends that I'm going, man, I've gone through some stuff. And what's crazy is as you read the story, Job literally says stuff like, why are you wasting my time with these comments? Can't you see I'm hurting? Stop blowing this air my way. I mean, it's ridiculous. These friends constantly beat him down and beat him down and beat him down. And Job gets this place in his life where he's so just broken, he's so destitute, he's so frustrated, he's so just downright confused, going, God, why? Have you found yourself in a place where you've been going, God, why? Why did you take that family member? Why did I lose the job? Why? Why me? If you've suffered, if you've had those questions, you're in good company, because Job would literally, if you read the text, these are real words that he says. I just pulled a bunch of them. He says, I was living quietly until he shattered me. My eyes are red with weeping. Dark shadows circle my eyes. My eyes are swollen with weeping, and I am but a shadow of my former self. My days are over. My hopes have disappeared. My heart's desire is broken. I cry to you, O God, but you don't answer. I stand before you, but you don't even look. Here's a man broken in every sense of the word. A man who had everything, and in a moment had nothing. He had nothing. Everything that he desired had been stripped and taken from him, and now Job is experiencing the depths of suffering that many will not ever experience. And here is where he finds himself. I don't know what to make of this. I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm innocent. I don't feel like I brought this on with my decisions. I don't know what to do. In chapter 31 actually is a defense. He's putting God on the stand and saying, I'm innocent, I'm blameless, I'm upright. What's crazy is we even see at the beginning of this text, God says, hey, have you noticed Job? He's upright and blameless. Quick note, we have to be very, 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 very careful when our friends are suffering or going through hard stuff that we don't point the finger and say, you brought this on yourself. I mean, haven't we done that? Friend gets fired or
something tragic happens and you just go, well, they had it coming. Oof. Let's slow down. But Job is at the end of his rope, and I encourage you, I just read this. I can't tell you the last time I read the book of Job, and I just spent yesterday and part of today just reading the whole chapter to try to understand like the depths of this man's despair. God, have you abandoned me? And really what I want to do for the remaining of our time together is if you're finding your place in a season of suffering or mourning, or maybe you have gone through some suffering and you're still asking, God, I still don't understand. Like why? Or maybe there's someone in your life that's suffering and you're the one asking, God, what have they done? I want to pull out some hopefully encouraging truths that we see really from the narrative of Scripture, but particularly from the story of Job, that we can kind of pull and get a bird's eye view. Because Job was in it. He was in the thick of it. And what I want to encourage you with, if you're in a season or a spot of suffering or mourning or confusion or whatever it is there's a bigger picture. There's a bigger picture at play when we bring our suffering to the equation. What happens when we go through hard stuff in life, and I think that if we're all honest, we would say this, when we get hurt, like I hurt my ribs last month, I was skating and I fell, and all I could think about for the next month was like this isolated pain point. Because when we go through trauma and pain and suffering, it narrows our scope into that situation where we can't see anything else. And so part of the problem is because we're so in it and we're so isolated in our trauma or in our suffering, we forget that there's more going on in life. There's a bigger picture at play. I was thinking about this truth earlier today, and when my son Judah was born in 2020, our family went through some really hard stuff that it was faith shattering and faith building at the same time, but he was born. And this is a pretty natural thing, but he was born and he had a tongue tie on the top of his lip and the bottom. And so the doctor's like, hey, he needs to get corrective surgery to fix it. Otherwise, when he begins to start speaking, it might affect his speech. And so what we had to do is we had to take my 4-week-old son and get him lip surgery, where they had to make an incision with a laser on the top and basically tear top and bottom. And their instructions for healing were some of the most shaking things as a new dad for me. The doctor said, what you need to do for the next 6 weeks, 4 to 6 times a day, is you need to put your son Judah on a table. You need to hold him down. You need to rip up the lip. And you need to take your finger and push it into the wound to make sure that it doesn't heal wrongly. And if I'm honest with you, I was so broken by this. Because here I was trying to be a new dad, and I'm holding my son, whom I'd do anything for, and I'm pinning him down in a moment while my wife is helping, and I'm rubbing my finger over his painful spot while he's screaming and weeping and thrashing, trying to get out of this position. And one of the things I was just realizing is that the pain that we experience does not and will not cause pleasure to the Father. It broke my heart to see my son suffer in this way, but there was a bigger picture. I recognized that if nothing would happen in this moment, he would be healed incorrectly. And so pain was part of the process, but he didn't recognize this. And I had to keep telling myself, there's a bigger picture. I'm talking about doing this so when he's 3, he can speak. When he's 10, he can articulate the love of God to people. I had to keep going back to that place, but my heart was breaking. And it let me in on a secret that I didn't understand in my own suffering. Because a lot of us suffer and we go through problem and we go through pain, and our perspective of the Father is, you must not love me. You must not see me or care about me. And the Father's going, no. There's a bigger picture at play. Son, daughter, I see you. I hear you. I'm with you. And so here Job is. He's putting God on the stand. He's lost everything. And when we back up from the story, we see that the narrative, the scope of human history, there's more going on in the scenario. But this is our choice when we go through pain and trauma and suffering. And everybody has different levels and degrees of suffering, and so I don't need to belabor the point, but what I want to let you know, if you're suffering right now, like hear this. God is not absent in your pain. He sees you. You might not feel him, and you might not sense him, And you might feel like Job, who's going, yo, God, I look to the north, I look to the south, the east, the west, and you are nowhere to be found. For 37 chapters, God is not present in this book. And then he pipes up in the 38th chapter. All of the friends have had their word. You caused this on yourself. You know what? Just suck it up, deal with it. And Job is going, I'm innocent. I don't deserve this. Why are you taking me through this? Your character, da 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 da. And then God pipes up and begins to say, where were you when the world was formed? Where were you when I spoke breath into creation? Where were you when I stretched out the heavens like a curtain? Where were you when I put life in birds of the sky? Where were you? Do you sustain the world in your hand? Do you keep the world spinning? Do you bring light to the sun? Do you bring darkness to the night? And God just begins to flex a little bit and say, I think I need to remind you here, there's something bigger going on. But not only is there a bigger picture, there's a better story. And this is what I love about what we get to do here in these moments, is because we get a different vantage point. Job was suffering in a space where he did not have a lot of hope. But friends, there's a better story. Job would say this, Job chapter 9, he said this in verse 33. If only there was someone to mediate between us, someone to bring us together, someone to remove God's rod from me so that his terror would not frighten me anymore. Then I would speak up without fear of him. But as it stands with me, I cannot. Even in the oldest manuscript of the Bible, even then, the world was crying out for a mediator, and I'm here to bring you a vantage point that carries good news. We stand here today with the only mediator that we will ever need, and his name is Jesus. He is the mediator, the only mediator between you and God, and he bridges the gap. There's a better story because we would see this, that Jesus would become the mediator that you and I need. And lastly, there's a brighter purpose. When we talk about suffering, it's man, and I've been through it, some things that if I would have had friends like the friends Job had, I don't know where I'd be. But here's what I've learned the small time that I've been on this planet, that suffering can either draw us closer to the Lord or drive us far, far away. And if faith isn't real, if it's not real to us, like real on the mountain when things are good, it will be revealed that it was fake when we get in the valley. But the good news of this story that we see from Job's life is there's a bigger picture. And I'm here to tell some of you who are so thick in it, you can't see out of it, that there's a better story on your horizon. You gotta flip the script. What the enemy intended for evil, God can bring for good. Suffering, pain. Why does this happen? I wish I could tell you, honestly, like as a pastor, as just someone who follows Jesus, I wish I could look you in the eyes and give you a really clear, definitive answer for why suffering happens. But it does. So we're left with a choice. Job is told by his wife, hey, why don't you just curse God and die? Throw in the towel. There's a brighter purpose. You hear in Revelation that those who follow Jesus, they overcame the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. Brighter purpose. What if your scars that you have that used to be wounds, what if the scars that you carry are supposed to be evidence of God's healing power for other people? What if your suffering is actually a space for someone else's breakthrough and healing? What if the ways that you have struggled your whole life is actually a story to be told for somebody else to step into and receive the thing they've been searching for this whole life? I don't understand suffering. Like, I don't get it, but what I see in the story is that at the end of the story, Job receives double what he had. And The truth that we need to settle in our souls is that this story by no means is a happy ending. Like, Job gets more livestock, he gets more children, he becomes wealthier, more influential. But Job's story is not necessarily a happy ending. There's redemption. But you think about it, when you have experienced loss and trauma and you receive healing and new blessing, does it take away the pain or the emotions or the memories of what you've lost? No. It gives you perspective. Gives you perspective. This story, Job models what it looks like to suffer and doubt and ask God questions, and then his response to God, I'll get there in a moment. I think he responds in a healthy way, but what I love is when we talk about suffering, we're not just talking about it like, oh man, it's something we go through, and if only there was a mediator. No. We see that there would be a God who would recognize that suffering is now a part of the fabric of humanity and would do something about it. That God in Jesus would step into the world and become known as the suffering servant. The one who would put on flesh, skin, and bones and suffer. He's acquainted with our sorrow and our sin. He knows what it's like for us to feel separated from God. When he stood on the cross and he said, my God, why have you forsaken me? We pretend like Jesus didn't know what it was like to feel abandoned and isolated and in sorrow. Here's a man who prayed so desperately before the cross, take this away from me. I don't want to go through it, and yet would hang on a tree thinking about you. Thinking about you so that your fortunes could be restored, AKA your relationship with God that's severed and suffering could be redeemed into celebration in the next life. We're not promised happiness or prosperity in the ways that I wish we were. Jesus said, when you go through this world, you'll go through hardships and suffering and trouble and tribulation, but take heart, be of good courage, I've overcome the world. And Jesus has taken the rod. Job said, I wish there was a mediator who could get this rod of discipline, this rod of wrath off of my back, and we would see Jesus take that place for you and I. Suffering servant that we need is found in Jesus. And I want to read how Job closes this story out. It's so profound. 42nd chapter. This is what he says. I had only heard about you before, but now I have seen you with my own eyes. I take back everything I said, and I sit in the dust and ashes to show my repentance. Here's a man who was blameless, who walked with God, and through the power of suffering, he gets to a place with God where he says, I only had heard about you before. The degree to which I knew you was only hearsay, but I stand here today saying, I have seen God. Which tells me this, that there's a window of encounter that will only be experienced with God through the power of suffering. There's things that you can only experience through suffering and heartache and pain. Celebration and mountaintops can never teach us about the things of God. It's in this moment that Job, a man broken, kids are dead, money stolen, servant, he's lost everything. And yet an encounter with God through suffering has led him to a moment where he says, I've seen you. And I take my rightful place. There's a bigger picture. There's a bigger picture involved. There's a better story being written. There's a brighter purpose. And what we see is that suffering, although I wish we didn't, thank God Jesus suffered on behalf of us so we don't have to suffer for eternity. I wish I could say so many more things, but I want to encourage you in this alone. If you've gone through hard stuff, if you're going through hard stuff, if you're suffering, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, relationally, physically, you name it. If you're there, I wish I could look every one of you in the eyes. Those who are going to watch this message back online, there's a God who sees you. And just because he feels absent doesn't mean he is. And though he might feel absent, he's working. And he sees you. He's with you. And if you'll just take a moment to lean into God in your suffering, don't need to shy away, play church, I don't know. Be real with God. He can handle it. His sovereignty isn't hanging on the balance by whether we think or believe he's sovereign. He's sovereign. He's got you. And he wants you to just take a moment and sit in his arms and just trust him. And I wanted to get into groups because this is the most valuable time, because I believe there's going to be some conversations that are going to bring some breakthrough and healing to some of you, because some of you just need to invite people into your suffering. Don't gotta tell everybody, but maybe you gotta tell somebody, this is going on and I'm breaking inside. There's a God who loves you. And so here's my only response. I want us to honor the moment. If you close your eyes, bow your heads. If you're in the room and you're going through some type of suffering, mentally, emotionally, maybe it's a hardship, maybe there's some trauma of your past that you would say, no, I'm still very much suffering as a result of something that happened to me, that happened in the past, something I did I can't forgive myself for. If you need just the God who sees, the God who sees, the God who is sovereign, the God who cares for us in our suffering, if you need the God of the universe to touch you tonight, just slip up a hand. Yep. All the way on the left, all the way, yep. Hold your hand up. I'm gonna pray while your hand is in the air, and I want you to pray with me that you would say, God, I don't understand why I'm going through what I'm going through, but I choose to trust that there's a bigger picture. I choose to trust that there's a brighter story and a better story being written. God, would you take my pain and rework it into purpose? So Father, right now, every hand that's raised, God, I thank you for the example that we have in Job. He can go to the depths of humanity, lose it all. God, I pray for the young adults right here, every hand that's raised. I thank you that in Jesus we see someone who is acquainted with our sorrow and suffering, with the suffering presence of Jesus be made known to every hand raised today. God, I pray peace. I pray breakthrough. I pray healing. I pray provision. Father, bring relief to the suffering with the hope that one day, the promise is one day for those of us who follow Jesus, every tear will be wiped from our eyes. There will be no more sorrow, no more mourning, no more suffering. That all will be right because of a person named Jesus. God, I thank you for this community. I'm praying for those online who are tuning in a few short hours or later. God, I pray that you would invade their space through time and space and right into their place. Do a work in our heart. God, I'm praying over group time tonight, God, that there would be things that be shared, Lord, there be healing. That this would be the safest place to have the hardest conversations. God, meet us tonight. We honor you. We love you. We bless you. In Jesus' name, amen.